Welcome to Hakam Inspire. Our guest today is Dr. Naveed Aziz, who is a genomics research scientist and serves as the Chief Executive Officer of CGEn, Canada's national platform for genome sequencing and analysis. Dr. Naveed's leadership has enabled CGEn to fuel research and innovation, playing a key role in the advancement of technological developments within the field of genomics. He's also passionate about the development of powerful and efficient solutions enabling high-speed data exchange at national and international scale. His previous roles include serving as the Director of Technology Programs at Genome Canada, Head of Genomics at University of York, UK, and as a Research Fellow at the Noble Research Institute, USA. He's also recently presented a TEDx talk on convergence of divergence, the mysteries of the human genome, and we'll also leave a link for this in the description below. But with that, Dr. Naveed Aziz, it's a pleasure and welcome to the Hakam Inspire podcast.
Jazakallah, it's an absolute pleasure to be here with both of you, and I'm looking forward to our discussion today.
Jazakallah. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Naveed. Now, we want to talk to you about your research in genomics and the field you're in at the moment. But just to begin with, just to kind of get a background, you're an Ahmadi Muslim scientist and researcher. And nowadays we find people saying quite often that Islam, religion and science can't go hand in hand. From your experience, if any, how has Islam, the Quran, your relationship with Allah Ta'ala, God Almighty, how has that motivated you and helped you with your decision towards research in your field?
Jazakallah. Just to start off with, I just wanted to say Jazakallah for the invite. I think the Inspire podcast plays such an important part in guiding the next generation, and I'm humbled to be part of this. And may Allah bless all of you for organizing these podcasts and to speak to me. And may Allah bless the whole team of Inspire Al Hakam. Yeah. So, in response to your question, my belief is that we live in a time where Quran has been explained to us in a fabulously easy way, especially for MD scientists, and we have really guidance. We also have guidance from our Khulafa, which is easy to access and understand as well. So we really have no reason not to make use of this divine resource, right? So personally, I can tell you that one of my earliest memories in growing up in Pakistan, where Islamic studies is a compulsory subject in school when you study, one of our teachers in the context of sadaqah or charity cited a verse of Holy Quran where Allah says that it is like grains growing 7 years with 100 grains in every year. So that's about 700 grains per seed. And it wasn't until later when I was studying plant genetics, actually, I realized that with all the advancements in science and research, still today, actually, on average, we can only produce about 200 to 300 grains per wheat plant. This is less than half of what Quran has really indicated the potential yield is. So that made me think of the value of understanding the genetic fingerprint of the organisms and the power of this knowledge in helping push the boundaries of science. So that guidance from Quran in the sense of what the potential yield is and what we are today kind of, at least personally, pushed me into learning more and finding out why not and how can we get to it. And then when it comes to guidance from the Khulafa, when I started or before I started my PhD in the UK, I arrived from Pakistan in the UK, and I think it was second or third day I had my mulaqats set up with Khalifa Rabi Rahimahullah. And I was a bit nervous asking him about starting my PhD in genetics because of all this talk of playing God and all of that, right? Yeah. So I went to him and I said, I'm starting this PhD in genetics in Scotland, UK. Any advice? And I told him, I said, I'm a bit worried about this. And he told me two things. And this is kind of gives you an idea of the guidance, right? He says, one thing he told me that everything has good and bad use, even atomic energy. So if my intentions were good, it would be fine. Yeah. But the second thing that stayed with me for a very long time till today is that he said, remember that Allah has ultimate power over what human wants to do. So in Urdu, he said, Malik Khuda hai, और वही होता है जो वो चाहता है. That's what he told me. So essentially, we can push the boundaries of science as much as we want.
Yeah.
As long as our intentions are good, I think it will be all right. So just a couple of examples to give you personally where I get inspired by or seek guidance from Quran and our Khulafa's advice. And I think it's essential for everyone. I wouldn't say it's an opportunity. It's essential, especially for MD scientists, when we have all the tafasir of the Quran so readily available in all different languages.
Yeah.
So I also want to ask a question about genomics. More specifically, what is genomics and what is precision medicine research?
Sure. I can talk about this forever. So genomics studies an organism's complete genetic material, right? Including its genes, DNA sequence, and all their function. It really explores how genes relate to traits, disease, and overall health, in a nutshell. And precision medicine, on the other hand, uses this genomic information with other data to develop individualized approaches to disease prevention, diagnosis, providing tailored treatment to individual patients based on their own genetics and environment and lifestyle, even, right? So, precision medicine research really collects and analyzes large scale data sets. And we can talk about why large scale data sets in a minute. But and these studies then help identify patterns and biomarkers and genetic variations that needle in a haystack, influencing disease progression or treatment response. So by understanding each patient's unique version of the genome, precision medicines then enables informed decisions and personalized treatment options with improved outcomes and reduced adverse effects, essentially.
I see.
Okay. You mentioned the kind of large-scale data sets, one of these being kind of the Human Genome Project, and DNA is so complex. How can we better understand DNA? What was the Human Genome Project? And how do you see things kind of developing and the application to today's day and age?
Sure. So I think it would be, to answer this question, it would be useful, hopefully for the audience as well, to kind of take a little bit of step into the basics. And when it comes to life on Earth, DNA is the basic unit that encodes biological information, right? Encoded within our DNA are the directions of traits like height, our eye color, whether we can digest lactose, how one can react to exposure or onset of disease, and you both understand that better than I do. And the DNA molecule is really made of sugars, phosphates, and one of four nitrogen bases, right? Adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine, or in short, we call them A, T, G, and C. So a single human genome has 3.2 billion such letters in a very specific order.
Oh, wow.
And all these 2.2 billion letters represent a full human genome. And then you add to that is that genetically, humans are 99.99% identical. So these bases, only four bases, remember, and they are in a pattern, and they are 99.9% similar for all humans.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case, then the questions come to mind. So how is it possible that we are so similar yet so different?
Yeah.
So it turns out that it is the sequence of the four letters that make us different, or the changes in those four letters that make us different. So today we have a technology that can read the sequence of the genome at speed. So you talked about the Human Genome Project. Human Genome Project was the first time when scientists wanted to read these 3.2 billion letters in what sequence they were and how they were stacked within the human genome. The Human Genome Project was launched in 1990 and was completed, or 99% of it was completed in 2003. The last 1% took a very long time because it was a complicated region, right? It was only actually last year when the full human genome was published.
Oh, wow.
All right.
Right. So yeah, a lot of people don't know that the full whole genome was only published last year because the last small percent was very difficult. There's a lot of repetitive regions, and you can imagine like putting a puzzle together, right? If you have a lot of similar pieces, not the same but very similar, it's hard to figure out,
Yeah.
right? So it took about 13 years for the 99% of the human genome to be sequenced, and it cost the world $1 billion.
Yeah. Okay.
1 billion, and there was so many countries and labs involved. Everybody divvied up the chromosomes. So you do this one and I'll do this one. It was a monumental effort. And one of the reasons that the effort and the time and the cost was so massive was that the DNA within the human genome, it's a large number of information, or large amount of information, right?
Yeah.
So if you stretch the DNA from one cell all the way out, it's about 2 meters or 6 feet long.
Yeah.
If you stretch the DNA from all human body, it will go to the sun and back over 60 times.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's the amount of information they were trying to read.
Oh.
So that's why it took such a long time. But in 2007, around the time when Apple launched their first iPhone, yes, there was a time before iPhones, a new DNA sequencing technology was introduced called the next generation sequencing, right? And that increased our sequencing output and accuracy by about 70-fold in a year.
Wow. Okay.
So today, we can complete a 30x human genome in 2 to 3 days for a cost of under $1,000.
I see.
Okay.
So we've come from all of that to this. And I said 30x because, again, don't want to get too technical, but we want to, for each genome, we want to read it. Data shows that you want to read it at least 20 to 30 times to make sure that when you stack it together, you get a consensus sequence that is most accurate for that human. So we say 30x. So if you want to do a 1x genome, it will be even quicker, but we don't do that for research because it doesn't really mean anything. So a 30x genome, 2 to 3 days, $1,000, done.
So I also want to ask a question. About AI. Now we see AI emerging, especially in the last few years, across all platforms, all fields in the world. Now I want to ask about the role of AI in medicine and genomics. Do you see AI holding, in the future, a pivotal role in medicine and genomics?
For sure. As I was saying, but by nature, the power and promise of genomics comes from our ability to mine and drive insight from large scale data sets, right?
Mm-hmm.
And AI can really play a significant role in mining large data set with speed and accuracy. Some of the areas where AI is already making a difference and perhaps will make a bigger difference are things like drug discovery, where we can look at, find appropriate targets in human genome to manage disease. In prenatal testing, we can test for the variation in an unborn baby by using non-invasive methods, by using a small sample of the pregnant mother's blood. Precision cancer treatment is another area where, and rare disease, where genomics, large scale data can provide insights into, therapies. And again, AI can help us mine these large data sets. Medical imaging and diagnosis, again, very relevant to both of you. The AI algorithms can now analyze medical images like X-rays, MRIs, CT scans, and aid in the detection and diagnosis of these diseases. So machine learning techniques can enable AI models to learn from large data sets and identify patterns and anomalies that may indicate certain conditions. So AI-powered image analysis has already shown promising results in diagnosis of cancer, cardiovascular disease, eye disease.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
AI is going to play a huge role in mining the data. Again, it's just speed and accuracy is important for genomic studies, and AI can provide that.
Yeah, I have seen like quite a few research projects. Like you mentioned, there's this new AI technology looking at, we have patients who undergo X-rays, CT scans, and they often go to radiologists to be reported, and this AI software is able to identify sometimes more accurately and pick up some of the smaller lesions that would normally go missing. And the technology does seem quite inspiring and amazing, and I suppose it is about kind of guiding that technology for use to increase your efficiency, particularly in your field where you're analyzing sort of large data sets. It can really kind of increase the efficiency and output, so it's very, very interesting.
Correct. And you can imagine for like CT scans, if somebody is looking at them, their knowledge is limited to the CT scans they've seen in their lifetime or have learned about. Whereas AI can look at everything, point to a few examples. Somebody will have to go and validate that at this point, at least. But still, it's just the speed and accuracy increase.
So whilst we're talking about the future of medicine, I want to go back. You spoke about the fact that we have in ourselves 3.2 billion of these letters, of these genes. So genes, as we learned in school, genes are heavily involved in coding for proteins. However, most of these genes actually, I think maybe 90% of them, don't actively translate to form proteins. They're just part of our genetic makeup. So these genes, what's the role of these genes and why are they important? And possibly, if you could, is there anything clinically interesting about these genes regarding the future of genomics?
Absolutely. So you're absolutely correct that there's that not all genes actively translate to form proteins. Right now, we have for human genome we have about 10,000. The number keeps changing because the research keeps changing. About 10,000 genes that are associated with disease, and for example. So you're right. There's a high number of, or vast majority of our genome that does not produce proteins, right? However, the non-coding regions in our genome play a critical role in various biological processes. So they're not just they used to be called junk DNA, but not anymore because more and more research realize that it's not really junk. It has a role to play. So I can give you 2 or 3 examples of how it plays a role. So non-coding genes and regions often can act as regulators, controlling the expression and activity of these protein coding regions. Non-coding regions of genome can also have structural roles. For example, they can help maintain the stability and the organization of the chromosomes, facilitate DNA replication and repair, if you remember from your study days. Then non-coding regions have been increasingly recognized for their involvement in human disease. And mutation or variation in these regions can disrupt regulatory processes, you can imagine, which will lead to abnormal gene expression, which will contribute to the development of various disorders, again, including cancer, genetic syndromes, complex disease like diabetes, heart disease, neurological disease. So, yeah, they play an important role, and understanding the role of the non-coding regions is critical for our understanding the complexities of the genome and unraveling the mechanisms underlying gene regulation and disease. Research in this field has expanded significantly in the recent years, and ongoing studies continue to shed light on the importance of these non-coding elements in shaping our genetic makeup and influencing our biological process. There's also this concept, there's also this concept of dark genome. So when I say shed light, it was a little bit tongue-in-cheek because there's a concept of dark genome which refers to the portions of the genomes that are still poorly understood or not well characterized.
Oh, I see.
Right. Okay.
And it includes regions of the genome that do not code for proteins, non-coding regions, and have unknown function. So we refer to them as the dark genome, just like the dark web.
To this day,
we really don't know. To this day, yeah, dark genome actually is a very recent term. As I said, we used to call it junk DNA, but then there was the other understanding came that it's not really junk. We just don't know what it does, right?
Sure.
Just like the human brain. You two are, in the field, you understand that the human brain, we only understand a small portion. What portions of brain that people used to call, they're just they don't do anything. Now we realize that no, each and every part of brain is doing something. Maybe we don't know what it's doing. So it's this idea of dark genome. So things keeps changing, and it's just such a such an amazingly rapidly developing field. Sometimes hard to keep up with, but it's very fascinating.
Yeah, definitely.
I just want to ask a very quick question on what kind of therapeutic options are available, because treating genetic diseases or miscoding of proteins and these kind of things are very difficult. So what kind of therapeutic options are available?
So right now, some of the rare diseases where two people in the world have it or five people in the world have it, some of those diseases have had very successful therapies and cures, where through gene targeting and through gene editing, you can create carrier or vehicles that has the correct form of the gene that can go and swap the kind of disease or and repair the disease part. So those are still available, but those therapies right now are very, very expensive. It's hundreds of thousands of US dollars
Yeah.
per therapy. So
Yeah.
while they are available, saying that, well, it's available is a bit of a misleading, because not available to a lot of people. Probably
Yeah.
less than 1% of the people in the world could probably access something like that. And not just even the money, but also somebody taking it. So there are companies that will do that for you, but they are very much in kind of research stage. But the idea is that as we get more understanding, these therapies will become like vaccines. I don't think they'll be like a 10 pound a shot, but still will be
Yeah.
cheap enough that people will be able to access them. And I think hopefully at one point, it's a whole other discussion, but the amount of resources and money spent on a genetic disease or a life cycle of the patient, and
Sure.
again, you two understand that better than, is a lot more than a therapy for a few $100,000 that can fix that issue and they lead a normal life. So those economic analyses are being done at some point. The governments and the NHS and the others will, NIH and others will realize those economic benefits and will start to come more norm. I think in both of your lifetime, I think that you will be sending people for these personalized therapies to specialists and to
Yeah,
places. I'm
definitely.
hoping so.
Yeah.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
That would be amazing to see kind of if
But
that if that
that's a little bit of a clue to you too, that like you are doing, stay up to date with technology and
yeah.
with the research and with kind of personalized medicine, because it's coming. It's coming
Yeah.
to you, and you'll have to use it. You don't want to be in a position where you're trying to catch up later on.
Yeah, it's so true.
That's fantastic.
It's so true. I think at the end, I also want to ask a question. Like you said, you have to keep up with the world. You can't fall behind, especially in the rapidly growing world with technology. So, with young Muslim scientists, young Muslim researchers, what advice would you give about the importance of research and science and keeping up with technology day to day?
Yeah, so I think Huzur has repeatedly talked about this and has really encouraged the younger generation and all of us to take on research and produce the next Abdul Salam in the Ahmadiyya community. And everywhere
Exactly.
people are really, the Ahmadiyya community is really in, this podcast being part of it. And so I can't really give any better advice than Huzur can. But in my humble opinion, I think it's a very important area of a career to follow. I will not sugarcoat it. Research is not easy. It's hard to. It's a long career path. It's hard to get that. It's your passion. You don't do it for the money. It's your passion
Yeah, yeah,
that
so true.
does it. Right? But because of simply because of our beloved Huzur's wishes, I think that's the biggest attraction for me, and to tell the next generation to look into research. In terms of keeping up, I think it's hard work. It's hard work in any field, in medicine, engineering, everything. It's hard work, and to keep up with it, you'll really have to do a lot of reading. Um, but my real advice to the next generation who would want to be in this field is to diversify. Definitely diversify your experiences, diversify your ability. As you see, AI, genomics, medicine, all of that is, so we just said that in the future you probably need some understanding of some level of all of these to be able to practice as a practitioner.
Yeah.
So diversification within kind of that little bit of a lateral diversification with even with engineering, with any field of research, with any field of science, I think is important. That's what I tell my kids as well, to diversify. Don't go down a tunnel. Diversify. I have myself done that. I went ahead and did an MBA to understand the kind of the management side and the economics side of things. I have a PhD in this area. I keep on gathering as much information. I'm a self-proclaimed bioinformatician as well, because I did and I still do a lot of data analysis. So you have to diversify to excel.
Yeah,
I think
so
that's
true.
That's
it all reminds me that, Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam back in Arabia would say, there's a hadith that says that seek knowledge even if you have to go as far as China. So what you said completely relates to that. 100% so true. You have to diversify it.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. And just on that kind of diversification, we've seen kind of the previous great scientists that you've mentioned, Dr. Abdus Salam as well, and we see it nowadays that alongside their clinical research and scientific research, they've also looked into Quranic research, studying the Quran and the verses and using that. And sometimes that is a source of hidden knowledge which inspires you to research further in your field. So, I just want to echo what you said there, Dr. Naveed. Dr. Naveed, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. Really, really interesting topic, and we wish you the best of luck with your research in the future. We'd love to have you on again, and we hope that our listeners have enjoyed this discussion and with yourself.
Absolutely. No, Jazakallah for the invite. And I really enjoyed the discussion. As I said at the start, I can talk about this forever. Would love to talk to you guys again whenever. I'm doing this, leading the Canadian COVID program, and we're just seeing some results out of that as well. So maybe at one point we can talk about that as well, for interest of physicians and others as well. So absolutely, just let me know.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the Al-Hakam Inspire podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Visit our socials on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Al-Hakam Inspire. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave your comments there. We would love to hear your feedback and thoughts, so send us an email to inspire@alhakam.org.